This light seems so incredibly harsh, but I am just going to go ahead and work through it. Today I'm going to talk about something a little bit different other than hair. Some of you may not know, but a lot of you probably do know because most people that watch me are people that I know personally. I like to RV. So I thought I would tell a story about how my love for RVing and outdoors began. Believe it or not, this all started with a fascination with tiny houses. So I had watched a bunch of tiny house series and shows and how-tos and builds, and I just really got fascinated in the idea of traveling across the country, living in a tiny house, basically hauling a tiny house from East Coast, West Coast, North, South, anywhere opportunity would take me. I'm fortunate enough to have a job that I can travel. So I was determined that after my daughter graduated and was settled and off to college, that I would travel with my job from place to place and live in a tiny house. I was really serious about this goal. I did a lot of research. I did sketches, I did drawings, I did design apps, all to get a feel and get the idea of what I wanted in and from this tiny house. You can even see here where I basically took painter's tape and outline the dimensions on my wall so I could get an idea of the spatial dimension and how big the stairs and storage areas would be in this tiny house. I think at the time I was planning on anywhere from a 30 to 25 foot tiny house build. And then the opportunity came up to attend a tiny house festival in Georgia. So I thought, why not have a near tiny house experience? The fairgrounds had an area where RVs could basically camp and stay the night. So I thought, why not enjoy the festival in an RV, which is very similar to a tiny house. Previously, I had gone to RV shows and boat shows because a lot of the things were very similar, like plumbing, toiletry, baths, kitchens, sinks were very similar for RV and boats. So my big plan was, I didn't want to spend the majority of my RV time traveling from Virginia to Georgia. So I thought I would just take my car and drive on down to Georgia and rent a RV in Georgia and then drive it to the tiny house festival. To be honest with you, I wasn't confident or even sure that I could drive an RV. So I think the place was called RV Share out of Georgia. And my plan was to just call them and get an idea of the price and what it was like and what kind of experience that you needed. So I was just going to ask a few questions and get some information. I spoke to this really nice guy and he got me all pumped up and hyped up. He told me about this sweet little old lady that would rent this large RV and travel from coast to coast every summer and spring. He told me that if I didn't feel I could drive it, he would refund 100% of my deposit. So next thing you know, I was hyped up, pumped up, my credit card was out, and I was booking a 28-foot Class C RV. So at this time, I was so excited about the tiny house and going to the festival, I thought I would go ahead and document the journey. I didn't have any intent on how I was going to put this together, but I just wanted to have a documentation of my journey. So, never been RVing before, so I'm going to do my best to figure out what I think I'll need. So just trying to do kitchen stuff because I know the kitchen stuff is not provided. So main thing we do, I plan to actually eat out most of the time, but just in case we have snacks. So we got a chopping board here, paper towels. Don't think it comes with toilet paper, so we will be bringing that as well. And my collapsible handy dandy, can't live without it, salad spinner, which you can do so much more with, like dry off your fruits and vegetables in addition to pasta and all that stuff. And all that stuff in here. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's kind of fun. So I met my contact at a U-Haul facility in Georgia where they stored the RV, and from there is when we did the test drive. He had me doing left turns, right turns, some merging, a little bit of backing up. And he said, hey, you're handling this like a pro. When I got into the Class C RV, it wasn't that bad. I got into the cab and it was basically like driving my dad's pickup truck. You just had to be extra mindful about, turning and merging. I think the scariest moments were making turns and having to be so aware of where the back of the vehicle was in perspective to the curb, because I didn't want to hit fire hydrants or people or little dogs and children. A couple of turns and it just kind of came second nature. I don't know, maybe I was a trucker in my previous life, but driving a 27-foot RV, it actually came very natural to me. I was doing pretty well with the RV. I was merging onto highways, I was backing up, I even did one kind of quasi-semi U-turn. I even took a wrong turn somewhere in downtown Atlanta and managed to drive around and get back on the highway and merrily go about my business. So our plan after picking up the RV was to head to Stone Mountain National Park. It's a really nice national park outside of Georgia. If you get a chance, you really need to check it out. You go up to the top of the mountain and it's just the most spectacular, beautiful view of all of Georgia, Atlanta that you'll see. And it's kind of funny because it's like right outside the city and it's like having the best of both worlds. So we got to the campground. We had a few stops. We made, of course, a Walmart stop to get our supplies and food and things like that. And we didn't get to the campground until after hours. And what I didn't realize is when you go to an RV camping after hours, it's not like going to a hotel where there's somebody at the desk to check you in and show you around. You basically pull up in the woods in the middle of the night, nobody's around, nothing's open. And I panicked. I really panicked because I didn't realize things were going to be closed down. I was like, what am I going to do with this RV until the morning? I kind of understood the whole generator concept, but I wasn't like confident in myself to get that generator going in the middle of the night and knowing how to work all the features. I wanted some plugins. I wanted to be plugged into electricity, the sewer, water. I wanted it all. And then I just took a breath, calmed myself from panicking. I convinced myself that I was not going to get eaten by a bear or sucker punched by a deer in the middle of the night. So I carefully went up to the the after hours check-in area. Obviously no one was around. I took the time, read the signs, and read what you're supposed to do when checking in after hours. It was very simple. It's like this honor system, basically. You look at this chart and you look at areas that are available. You circle the area that you're going to park in. You mark the slip and you put in some money in an envelope, and then you stick it into the lockbox for people to pick up in the morning. And then you drive to the campsite and then you hook up. It was just that simple. So we did our check-in and we found our campsite in the dark, lots of gravel, lots of bumps. Did I mention that it was pitch dark? One of my biggest trepidations about an RV was what they call the black tank. If you don't know what a black tank is, Google it. I'd already assigned it in my mind that I was not changing that black tank. I was just going to do it. They charge like $80, $60, I don't know, but there was a fee that you could pay at the end where they would do the black tank cleaning for you. You know, with a pair of gloves and some common sense, it was not that bad. And I got the hang of it and I was able to take care of the tanks myself. So in the morning, we made ourselves at home in our RV. My daughter will show you the grand tour of our RV. It was easy to get comfortable in the RV. It was like having a quaint, cute little apartment. So we enjoyed about a day and a half camping at Stone Mountain. And then after that, the plan was to meet my mom outside of Atlanta and then head south down to the Tiny House Festival. The Tiny House Festival was awesome. There were so many great people and awesome tiny houses. I learned so much. The people were so friendly and helpful. I learned more in depth about the solar panel system, how to power your tiny house, realistic and non-realistic designs. Just really a great group of people. They had lecturers as well. There was so much innovation, so many contemporary and luxurious designs and ideas. You just couldn't even imagine. We hung out for a while in the area designated for RVs, but then I decided I wanted to go find a campground. Just wasn't too sure about the whole generator thing as far as heating the unit and heating the water. If there's one thing you know about me, I don't do cold. I don't do cold air. I don't do cold weather. I don't do cold water. I needed to know that when I got in that shower, that water was going to be hot. We were able to find a very nice RV park near a lake. It was wonderful. I woke up early and just walked around the facilities near the lake, and it was so quiet. And right then I just kind of fell in love with, being, I don't want to say in nature. It wasn't like I was roughing it or anything like that, but just something so quiet and so serene and peaceful. It was just such a great atmosphere, and I really enjoyed it. And ever since then, I knew that I wanted to be, I guess, nature adjacent, not necessarily in nature, and I just loved the peacefulness of it. So after the Tiny House Festival, I was determined. I had my plans, I had my sketches, I had a bag full of builder cards and contacts and people, that were going to really make this happen. Now, at the time, I was very single. And I remember my mom telling me, well, if you do this tiny house thing and you're traveling from place to place, I'm afraid you might not meet that special somebody. And I told my mom, I really believe that special somebody is going to be on my way and have similar ideas and similar interests as me. I think that's where I'm truly going to meet that special person. I was optimistic. So, what changed? What swayed me from my dream of having a tiny house? Well, back at home in the DMV, there was the opportunity to attend another tiny house festival, and this one was right across the bridge in Maryland. The line was just crazy long. We struck up a conversation with a really nice lady while we were waiting. She was a writer and she lived in Maryland. She actually had a tiny home. So she told me the story. Her plan was to have a tiny house built and park on the property of her very close friends in a very exclusive area in Maryland. So she checked zoning and coding, and she even sent personal letters to the neighbors to make sure everything was okay. So lo and behold, her tiny house was done and she put it on the land. And then the letters began and the phone calls. But apparently people had a real issue once she put the tiny house on the land. All the people that told her that they were fine with it at some point had a major change of heart. So there she was with her tiny house on the property, and she found herself having to find a new place to park her tiny house. The backlash she received, it was a beautiful house, and it was on a lot of land. It wasn't like it was cramped into, right next to her neighbor looking like a shanty town or anything like that. But that was a real eye-opener. I never considered our tiny houses even welcomed everywhere. So then I shifted my research to find out where a tiny house is actually welcomed. Well, there's communities in Florida and in out west that are slowly, at the time, which is a couple of years ago, slowly starting to welcome tiny homes. But apparently there was a lot of opposition. And I did not want to be caught in all that. And then the final kind of nail in the coffin was I found out a lot of RV parks do not allow tiny homes on them. So I thought this would be very limiting if I had planned on traveling. I wasn't going to be traveling every month, but I had planned on maybe traveling 3, maybe 4 times a month, mainly because tiny homes aren't RVs. They weren't made to be constantly on the road. It's kind of, you find a place and you stay for a couple of months or longer, and then you go to the next place. So that really sunk in and had me very concerned about where would I be welcomed with this tiny house. And to be honest, it was a major bummer after the time and effort and dreaming and hopes that I had for it. But lo and behold, I realized that, hey, I could always go back to an RV. I enjoyed being on the road with the RV. I had no problem driving it. They're welcomed at all RV parks, obviously, and national parks, and they wouldn't be a major issue. And for the most part, they're built to be on the road. So if I wanted to travel more frequently, I could. So I didn't pursue it exactly like my tiny house dream, but I did want to pursue it and do more with traveling and seeing the country and going from coast to coast and state to state. Shortly after that, for just a couple of years, getting the time off to take these big trips wasn't happening like I wanted it to, but I still had plans on eventually getting the time to do more traveling and seeing the country more. And I was still very interested in RVs. So I started going to more RV shows just to get an idea of what I was comfortable with, what I really wanted in an RV. And shortly after that, I met my now husband. Funny story. Back when we were dating, we were just chit-chatting about something, and he told me the story like, he's always wanted to go RVing across the country. We were dating for about a month or so at this time, and honestly, I thought he was pulling my leg. If you don't know, my husband's visually impaired, so I just never imagined that would be something that he'd want to do, go RVing from state to state. Not only is he visually impaired, but he's a little bougie, so the idea of him camping or being an RV just kind of seemed like, are you pulling my leg? I honestly thought that maybe he had gone across my Facebook feed from like years before I met him and saw my RV trip and was just kind of, trying to be slick. But he actually really was genuinely interested in RVing. Like I said, I always knew the person I was meant to be with was going to have very similar interests as me and kind of be on the way. So as our relationship progressed, we still had our dream to RV and see the country in the RV. When we realized our relationship was very serious, we purchased an RV together, much to the surprise of all our friends and family. And we called her Always Home. We haven't taken any cross-country trips yet. Most of our trips have been local. We go down to Virginia Beach. We go to the local wineries. We joined a group called Harvest Host, and it allows you to stay at wineries across the country overnight for free. It's boondocking and no hookups, but through a lot of trial and error, we managed to become fairly decent boondockers. Boondocking is when you don't have all the hookups. You're basically on your own. Not totally on your own. You have a generator and water and all that good stuff, but kind of on your own. Probably our favorite site is the KOA in Virginia Beach. You can take a shuttle right to the beach. It's not too far. It's got great amenities. We've been there twice, and we love that place. The cool thing about us getting the RV together is our learning curve was a complete roller coaster. It seemed like one thing after another would either not work right, go wrong, or we had to somehow get fixed. But most of all, we had fun together. We learned a lot about each other because some of the things getting started were pretty stressful. I just remember he was so patient, so incredibly patient with me. We were very patient with each other. And there were times where we were annoyed and agitated and couldn't figure out what was going on. There was even a time I had to take a cold shower, so I was in a bad mood. And he pretty much endured the worst of me. During that time, we also discovered that though we love being outdoors and we love nature, we're pretty bougie. I guess you would consider us bougie nature lovers. We were definitely not the rough and rugged type. Hey, we boondock at wineries. It's interesting how the whole idea of traveling and RVing was like a dream and a concept that I had on my own. And then I met someone else who had a very similar interest and desire. That desire just brought us closer together. That's how my love for RVing started. So that's pretty much sums it up. That's how I got into RVing, and I should say that's how we got into RVing. Oh, I hope you enjoyed this video. It wasn't about hair, just a little tidbit, interesting fact, maybe not so interesting fact about me. If you'd like to see more videos like this, put a comment down below, let me know. And if you like this video, don't forget to give it a like or a thumbs up. If you haven't done so, I know some of you don't sign in. Sign into YouTube, like my video, and subscribe to my channel. I know you're out there, just take that extra step. And I will see you next time.